The series begins in 1994 with a little girl sleeping in her room. She wakes up looking for her mother, but does not find her. She goes out into the street when a strange woman tells her she knows where her mother is. She kidnaps the child and locks her in a room with a little boy. But what is the story of this girl? Moving forward to 2018, we meet the heroine, Kim Mi, the secretary of Lee Young, the most successful businessperson in Korea and neighboring continents as well. However, he has two problems. First, he's a narcissist, and second, he doesn't believe in second chances. For example, one of his executives makes a small mistake, and he does not forgive him, firing him immediately. The secretary is disciplined and skilled, managing his work and updating his agenda in a manner consistent with his preferences. She's perfect for him. He goes to a party and takes his secretary with him. At the party, he notices a girl trying to get close to him. The girl reminds him that today is her birthday and waits for him to give her roses. Young looks at Kim Mi from the corner of his eye. In response, she rushes to a florist to buy a birthday bouquet, even though she is allergic to roses. In the car, he compliments her, stating that he made the right choice in selecting her as his secretary, and that he is pleased with her performance that day. He wants to reward her because she deserves it and asks her what she desires. She says, "Since you insist, look for a new secretary because I would like to resign from my job." He waits for a moment, surprised, and then asks her why she wants to resign. She responds that it's a personal matter. When he gets home, he ponders the situation deeply and finds it hard to sleep because he has grown too accustomed to her presence in his life. During the dinner at his parents' home, they engage in conversations and discussions. Later, Young's father takes him aside to inquire about his marriage plans. Meanwhile, his mother talks to Kim Mi, expressing concern about her son's single status and expressing a wish for someone like her to enter his life. Kim Mi meets with her sisters and shares her decision to resign from her current job. They appear happy about it, relieved that she will no longer have to deal with the controlling narcissist. On Young's side, he's with his friend Yusik, pondering why she wants to leave. He's puzzled by her decision after her remarkable 9-year tenure at the company. As a narcissist, he assumes she admires him and views her resignation as an attention-seeking move. To appease her, he buys a bouquet and offers it to her, causing her to sneeze due to her flower allergy. She places the bouquet in the car trunk. The conversation then shifts to Young's romantic life, and he asks for her opinion on the girl he's dating. She responds positively, and he declares his intention to date no one else but her, to which she agrees. Convinced that she wants him, Young instructs her to take the following day off and contemplate the situation, though she's unsure what exactly she should be thinking about. She confirmed her decision to resign, emphasizing her desire for a life free of restrictions and pressure. At 29 years old, she yearns for happiness. Meanwhile, she wakes up the next morning feeling alive for the first time in 9 years, finally able to sleep well. The next day at the office, Young suggests they conduct interviews for a new secretary, and he even finds another candidate named Kim Ji. He then asks her to clarify what she meant about wanting to live her life, to which she responds that, at 29, she wants to experience love and date someone. Later on, she enjoys her time with her colleagues, who plan to set her up on a date with a journalist she might like. As they leave the workplace, Young meets her again and questions the seriousness of her desire for dating and marriage. She affirms her seriousness, expressing a strong desire for someone to be in her life and a longing to have children of her own. In response, he offers a proposal, suggesting that she can continue working and he will marry her. As she approaches him, she discreetly checks for the smell of alcohol on his breath, but he's quite sober and free from alcohol. He definitely has lost his mind, she thinks. Young mentions how shocked he was because no woman had ever rejected his proposal. His friend remarks that he probably doesn't handle rejection well. Meanwhile, Kim Mi has an unexpected visitor, Jiran, the woman Young has been spending time with. Jiran rushes inside without waiting for an invitation and suddenly asks, "He's not seeing you, is he?" Kim Mi responds, "Of course not. You're not seeing him either," given Young's well-known narcissistic tendencies. Young confides in his friend, Yusik, expressing his surprise at Miso's rejection of marriage. He wonders if there's something wrong with him. His friend suggests that he may have made a mistake by not dating her before proposing, as that might have allowed her to fall in love with him. Back at work, Kim Mi and her colleagues plan a welcome party for their new colleague, Kim Ji. In the evening, they gather at a restaurant, and to their surprise, Young joins them. However, the party doesn't seem as enjoyable as they had hoped, and time appears to pass slowly. When the party finally comes to an end, everyone disperses. Young offers to take Kim Mi home, and in front of her house, she wishes him a good night. However, he stops and asks her how he was that night. She responds that he was perfect, like any other night. He then expresses his desire to date her, but she explains that while he may be what many women desire, he's not her type. She's not interested in someone competitive from the business world. She wants a normal, loving person who cares about her. With that, she heads home. Later, while she is messaging her sister, she mistakenly sends hearts to Young in the middle of their conversation, leaving him puzzled by her unexpected gesture. On the following day, Young arrives at work without his tie, and Kim Mi instinctively adjusts it for him. However, he firmly tells her that this is no longer her responsibility and encourages her to pursue what she wants in life. He explains that she will remain at work for a month to assist with Kim Ji's training. Meanwhile, Kim Mi and her colleagues are dining at a restaurant where the waitress distributes questionnaires about life partners and what qualities are sought in them. Kim Mi doesn't know that Young had arranged for the restaurant to distribute these questionnaires to the diners. Back at home, she tidies up her room and removes anything related to her work when her phone rings with Yusuk's name, who asks her to meet him at the amusement park. She agrees and heads there, only to find the amusement park suddenly illuminated with lights and Young waiting for her. He reveals that he asked his friend to call her because he knew she wouldn't have come if he had called directly. He surprises her by revealing that he rented the entire park for the night, and they have a great time there. Afterward, they have dinner, and Kim Mi notices a change in Young's demeanor. He explains that he's trying to prove to her that he's not just self-centered and narcissistic, wanting to thank her for her 9 years of service. He offers to drive her home, but remembers something she wrote in the questionnaire, that she wishes to find her Prince Charming and get lost in his arms with a kiss. Young wants to fulfill that wish, but when he tries, she steps back. At the company, Kim Mi's friend reminds her of her date with the journalist. Kim Ji overhears this conversation, but promises to keep it a secret. But later on, she informs Young about Kim Mi's date, and he inquires further, learning that she's out with a journalist named Young. During her date, she can't help but compare it to her previous date with Young. She finds her thoughts drifting back to that day and wonders why. She decides that he's not her type and tries to keep it that way. While on her date, 2 of her colleagues take a picture of her, which reaches Young. As they leave the cafe, Young calls on her and asks about her actions. She playfully responds by implying that he's inquiring about her date, which upsets him. He reminds her that the sports competition in the company is tomorrow and suggests she should focus on that instead of going on dates. The following day marks the return of Young's brother, Sung, to Korea after almost 15 years in America. The 2 brothers have a strained relationship. The sports competition in the company kicks off, with competitors eager to win. Kim Mi ends up winning, and as per the game's rule, she is required to go on a date with her partner. The audience cheers them on, encouraging the date. The atmosphere at the game is lively, but Young feels increasingly uneasy. He mentions that this will be the last year for the competition. As they descend from the sports bleachers, Young stumbles and hurts himself. Kim Mi tends to his injuries with ice packs. During this time, Young asks her if it's okay for her to go on a date with the guy she participated in the competition with. She casually responds positively, triggering an unexpected reaction from him. He moves closer to her, touches her arms, and tries to pull her closer to his chest. She pushes him away. Sung is at his brother's house uninvited. When asked about his return, he mentions that he came back after what happened between them and expresses a desire to forgive and move forward. Young remains silent and mentions that he has work the next day and needs to sleep. The following day, a power outage occurs in the library where Young and Kim Mi are together. To pass the time, she brings out a romance book and discusses the type of love she desires in her relationship. However, this conversation seems to stir up Young's emotions, and he abruptly changes the topic. When the electricity is restored, he quickly departs. She plans to propose new ideas by inviting a famous writer named Morbius to serve as an advertisement for the company. However, nobody is aware of the fact that he has Sung himself. Back at her office, Kim Mi writes an email to Morbius, inviting him to the company's opening day without realizing that he's Young's brother. Madame Choi requests her son to have dinner with them because his brother has returned from America after many years. He agrees, and during the dinner, Sung expresses his desire to meet the secretary, Kim Mi, which leads to an argument that escalates, with both of them hurting each other. Their parents intervene to separate them. Afterward, Young seeks out Kim Mi, and when she sees the bruises on his face, she grabs his hand and puts ice packs on the bruises. They talk for a while and share a meal. When Kim Mi's sister notices that someone has shared food with her, She assumes it's her boss and expresses concern that he might be playing with her feelings. But Kim Mi reassures her that she views him as a manager. The next day, Young takes Kim Mi in his car and compliments her beauty. She realizes that she's been wearing the same blouse since the past Wednesday, but in his eyes, she's still beautiful. At home, Sung's father advises him not to pressure his brother or bring up the past because he is focused on his business projects and success. At the company, Sung meets Kim Mi again and thanks her for the invitation. She is confused about what invitation he's referring to, and he reveals that he is Morbiz and receives an email from her expressing admiration for his writings. Meanwhile, Young is searching for a suitable restaurant intending to confess his feelings. He makes a reservation and informs her about the date. She gets ready wearing a dress for the occasion. However, the writer contacts her and says he wants to see her. She texts him the restaurant's location. At the restaurant, Sung gifts her a copy of his new book. Unexpectedly, Young appears and returns the book to him, insisting that he has to leave immediately. An argument ensues between Young and Kim Mi, who expresses her frustration over his interference and decides to leave, stating that she doesn't have to spend the evening with him. The two brothers meet again, and Young asks what he wants from him. He assures him that he doesn't want to harm him. In fact, he wishes him success. He also clarifies that there's no intention of pursuing Kim Mi romantically. She had simply invited him, and he wanted to express his gratitude. However, Young dismisses his words, showing little interest in what he has to say. The opening day for the new branch arrives, and Kim Mi learns that Young kept his brother's invitation. She rushes to his office, questioning why he didn't want him to be invited. However, Young dismisses her concerns, and she leaves his office in frustration. It's only later that she discovers that Sung is Young's brother. This revelation upsets her, particularly recalling the time Young mentioned that he didn't like his brother. Later on, he regrets how he handled things with Kim Mi and apologizes to her, acknowledging that it's the first time he has ever apologized to anyone. In a flirtatious gesture, he compliments the red shade of her lipstick, which leads to a moment of tension between them. However, she quickly regains her composure and reminds him that she doesn't want him due to his narcissistic and self-centered nature. She also tells him she will take the following day off and warns him not to pursue her, or she will do something he won't like. During the night, Young contemplates how to make amends with her and sends her an apology message. She restrains herself from blocking him and responds that there's nothing to worry about, framing their relationship as that of good friends. On her day off, Kim Mi finds herself with no plans and reaches out to her friends, who are all busy at work. When she encounters Young unexpectedly, he explains that he took the day off to spend it with her. She agrees to reconcile with him, but under her conditions. They leave his sleek black Maserati Grand Cabrio behind and opt for a bus ride, showing the lengths to which a person may go for the sake of their loved ones. They enjoy alfresco dining on a mild and warm evening, and Young expresses a desire for her to share more about her family, since he's already introduced her to his. She reveals that her father is a rock singer who left her a legacy of debts, which she recently managed to pay off. She also has two sisters, both of whom are doctors. Kim Mi begins to delve into the topic of her kidnapping as a child and asks Young if his brother was also kidnapped. He responds with a concise yes. She is keen to learn more but refrains from asking any more questions. Instead, she approaches Sung and inquires about the kidnapping incident. He confirms that he heard about it, but doesn't remember any details. Kim Mi seizes the opportunity to ask about the relationship between Sung and his brother, and he explains that during the kidnapping, they were together until fate led Young away momentarily, allowing the kidnappers to wrest him away. This incident has created an underlying tension between them. From a distance, Young watches them both and calls her to meet him at his house. He asks her to go to the company and retrieve some files. While searching, she stumbles upon a drawer containing her CV among others, raising questions about why her CV would be there. Young's decision to choose Kim Mi as his secretary, despite having applicants with more distinguished qualifications, puzzles her. When she asks him about it, he playfully tells her that he chose her because of her name, Kim Mi, and that he wants to bring some excitement into her life. The next day, Sung calls and asks her to meet him. They meet at a restaurant, and Sung confesses that he has been thinking about her since their previous encounter. He suggests that perhaps they are destined to meet more often, to which she smiles, understanding his joking tone. As they leave the restaurant, Young suddenly appears, and in a superior manner, he instructs Kim Mi to wait in the car. Then he confronts his brother, issuing a threatening tone and telling him to stay away from her. Sung responds that he doesn't have the authority to dictate who Kim May can or cannot meet. Frustrated with the childish bickering, Young heads toward his car, but not before instructing her to stay away from his brother. Despite Young's warnings, Kim Mai remains determined to meet Sung again to recover her lost childhood memories before the kidnapping incident. However, Sung admits perhaps he is not the child who was kidnapped because he remembers nothing. These are just hypotheses. Young, growing increasingly frustrated, tries boxing to release his anger but finds it ineffective. He then calls Kim Mai, fabricating an emergency state to get her to come to him. Sung gives her a ride, and when they arrive, Young and Kim Mai have a brief and tense conversation. She questions the reason for the so-called emergency state, and he responds by asking why she is always with his brother. She asserts her independence in choosing whom to meet and explains that she does so for a purpose known to him as well. Young, seemingly perplexed, suggests that he is smart, handsome, rich, and owns a company, and he wonders why she doesn't marry him. She responds by stating that she doesn't want to be with him because she believes he only wants to marry her out of jealousy toward his brother, and she doesn't want to be treated as a mere toy. Instead, she seeks a man who loves her for who she is. She rejects Young's advances and returns home. The company arranges an entertainment trip and Young, unsure of what to do, decides to join to have some fun. During the trip, Kim Mai asks him why he came along, and he initially claims it's to share fun with his employees. However, when they are alone, he admits that he came primarily to spend the day with her. Their private moment is interrupted when the others arrive. As the group on the entertainment trip grows bored, they suggest playing a game of hide and seek, with the prize being a brand new tablet offered by Young. He decides to team up with his love, and they venture into the forest and hills together. However, Kim Mai's phone rings, and it's Sung calling. Young snatches the mobile phone from her hand and answers the phone, telling Sung that he dialed the wrong number. She takes the phone back and expresses her frustration over what happened, stating that her life and memories are her own to explore. An argument ensues, and just as the rain starts pouring down, Young covers Kim Mai with his jacket until they find shelter. While they sit and talk, she becomes terrified when she spots a spider, revealing her arachnophobia. Young, attempting to empathize, shares that he, too, lives with his phobias. He suggests that facing one's childhood insecurities is the only way to overcome them. Despite Young's warnings about digging into her past, she remains determined. He finally agrees to accompany her on this journey. The next day, she wakes up full of energy and ready to enjoy the mountainous air. However, she realizes that Young has left early with a message inviting her to his house once she gets bored, as he is preparing a surprise for her. While he goes shopping for a barbecue dinner with Yusik, Kim Mai gets ready for their date. When he sees her, he is captivated by her beauty, leading to the undesired overcooking of the barbecue meat. Their romantic evening is disrupted when Yusik unexpectedly arrives, causing her to hastily depart. Young is left uncertain about how to handle his friend's interference. How about strangling him with his bare hand? On the opening day of a press assembly, Sung talks about his book and hints at his relationship with Kim Mai, causing her to rush outside in confusion. She clarifies that what happened inside was a misunderstanding and professes her love for Young. They share a romantic and emotional moment, and on their way home, he looks incredibly content and happy. Outside her home, he questions why she doesn't marry him, given his wealth, intelligence, and looks. She replies that they've only just started dating, and she doesn't want to rush into anything. He assures her that he is willing to wait for her, no matter how long it takes. At the office, Kim Mai receives a call from Sung, but decides not to answer it. And Young suggests that since it's their first day as a couple, they should have a meal together and go for a walk afterward. They act like a loving couple in front of everyone, which raises eyebrows among their colleagues. Kim Mai advises him not to mix work with their personal life, but he continues to behave affectionately in the office, even performing tasks like printing papers and making tea for himself. She talks to Young, telling him that what he's doing is wrong, and that she's accustomed to performing her secretarial duties. He claims he's trying to make things easier for her, but she insists that it's her job and that she'll handle it. He eventually agrees to let her do her job, as she sees fit. Back at home, Kim Mai experiences negative self-doubts about her relationship with Young, including concerns about his feelings for her and his lack of calls. However, her thoughts are interrupted when she hears a knock on the door, and Young is outside, bearing dinner. Another knock follows, and it's her sister's visit. She hides him in her wardrobe to avoid them noticing him. During their visit, her sisters express disapproval of her relationship with her boss. After they leave, May lets Young out of his hiding place and reassures him that her opinion has changed since getting to know him as a person. The next day at the office, Sung apologizes to Kim Mi for confessing his feelings during a press conference for his book. She tells him that she has no special feelings for him and that she loves his brother Young. This upsets Young, and Sung taunts him, mentioning the kidnapping incident and suggesting that he can't have the girl he loves. Young takes his girlfriend for a walk and later on suggests they take a nap in the car before continuing their conversation. Back at her home, Kim Mi begins to suspect that Young might have been the kidnapped child due to the scar on his ankle. She decides to visit his parents' house and asks his mother if there's a possibility that Young was the kidnapped child from her past. The mother appears nervous and avoids giving a direct answer, but she shows her pictures of the two brothers when they are little. Kim Mi's suspicions grow stronger, but she doesn't voice her realization. At the company, she becomes increasingly convinced that Young is the child who was with her during the kidnapping, although she's not entirely certain. She keeps her thoughts to herself. Young arranges to meet Kim Mi at his apartment in the evening, and she notices the scar on his ankle once again. She becomes emotional and wonders why he won't tell her the truth. However, her sisters call and remind her about the upcoming family trip. When they return home, she mentions that tomorrow she'll be off from work for the family trip. He encourages her to do whatever she likes. And the next day, he is in front of her. Upon her question, he says that he wants to get to know her family better and show them a different side of himself. He accompanies her to her sisters. After a dry confrontation from their side, they become silent about his presence with them, especially when he mentions how much he loves their sister. The sisters initially have negative opinions about him, but he wins them over by showing his genuine and caring side. At his parents' house, the family discusses the past incident, revealing that Young was indeed the kidnapped child, and his real name had been changed. The reasons behind these actions are yet to be revealed. The dancing concert comes with Kim Mi and Young watching a performance when Kim Mi notices a dancer who triggers her memory from the past. She suddenly remembers everything and faints. She recalls the traumatic events of the past, including being kidnapped and held captive with Young. They were eventually rescued when the woman who had kidnapped them committed suicide. Young had pretended to lose his memory to protect his brother. And after Kim Mi resigned from her job, Young knew it was time to confess his love for her. In Young's apartment, the brothers have a heartfelt conversation. Sung is tormented by guilt and reveals that he was deceived all along. He used to believe that he was the one who was kidnapped, but in reality, he was the reason for his brother's kidnapping. Kim Mi overhears this conversation, and when Young sees her, he tries to maintain his rude and insolent facade. Hurt by her reaction, he expresses his deep love for her and urges her to start a new life. Sung, on the other hand, wanders the streets, filled with remorse for his brother's suffering. He visits his mother and shares what he has discovered, including why they deceived him. His mother is shocked by this revelation. The next day, Young's parents visit him at his company to discuss the past kidnapping incident. Young explains that pretending to lose his memory was the best way to protect his brother, especially since they had considered sending him to a mental institution. The two brothers eventually meet and talk. While packing his belongings, Sung expresses his desire to start a new life away from painful memories. He apologizes to his brother for what happened, but Young reassures him that he is not responsible for the past events. The brothers reconcile, and their relationship improves. During a lunch break, Kim Mi and Young are photographed together by the secretary. Upon this, Kim Mi panics and asks her not to reveal their relationship. The secretary promises to keep her secret. However, secrets have a way of getting out. Later, Young suggests that they announce their relationship publicly because he doesn't want to keep it a secret. When Kim Mi's father falls ill, she stays with him at the hospital. Young decides to meet her father and faces his skepticism about him. However, her father ultimately gives his blessing if it makes his daughter happy. During one of their walks, Young asks Kim Mi if she plans to resign from her job. She admits that she intends to resign, but is uncertain about her plans. In the company, Young decides to address the rumors about their relationship by gathering all the staff and officially announcing that he and Kim Mi are in a loving relationship. This puts an end to the speculation among the employees. Kim Mi reflects on her journey in the company and expresses her desire to continue working as Young's secretary because she doesn't want to be apart from him. He gladly accepts her decision. As they spend intimate moments together, her father unexpectedly shows up due to a supposed pipe burst in his home. He uses this as an excuse to have a man-to-man conversation with Young. Her father makes it clear that as long as Young makes his daughter happy, he has no objections. However, he warns him that if he ever makes Kim Mi sad or mistreats her, he will have to answer to him. The following day at the company, Kim Mi is surprised to find her colleagues have prepared a farewell party and a souvenir, assuming she would resign. She decides not to resign, and she feels bad about the money spent on the farewell preparations. However, Young calls her asking to meet him urgently. When she arrives at his house, she is led down a path beautifully lit with lights, leading her to a room where Young is playing the piano. After finishing, he kneels and proposes to her, and she happily accepts the proposal with a certain yes. The next day, Mi meets Young's mother, who is thrilled to have her as a daughter-in-law. She goes shopping for various wedding-related items, including dresses, shoes, and bags. The story concludes with a happy ending as Kim Mi and Young get married and live a blissful life together. They have the support and approval of their families and friends, and their love story comes to a fulfilling end.